Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan's most recent film, and it's very good, for lack of a better term. It is a very sophisticated film that really makes you think, and I really appreciate that. It is a very slow burn, which isn't a bad thing if written well, which this movie was, and it doesn't pull any punches. It gets right into the nitty-gritty of a project behind the Manhattan Project, and it's very good at exploring the themes and the consequences of potentially ending the world, both metaphorically and literally, all with the push of a button. My first video in a new series. I think I like calling them dissections. I really like the idea of not just reviewing a movie, because anyone can do that in their own way. I like dissecting the film on a thematic basis and really exploring what makes the film great rather than just saying it's great. And there's a lot of great moments, great shots, great acting, and great everything that goes along with Oppenheimer. I was very fortunate to be able to experience this for the first time at the Chinese Theater in LA in a glorious IMAX 70mm format. I wasn't even sure what the difference between IMAX, laser, digital, real really was until I started researching the importance behind watching this movie in the way Christopher Nolan directed, and that's the importance behind what a reel is, and not just a movie reel, but why and how it is so much better when viewing it as an audience member. I really thought that this was going to be overhyped just because it's on a bigger screen, but no, this was glorious in a very horrifying way. It really sucks you in, it makes you feel like you're there, and the bass, oh my god, if you saw this movie in the same format I did, with the same audio format I did, you felt it in your chest. The whole theater is rumbling, and when that bomb goes off, I cannot overstate the horrifying beauty behind that scene. And this really prompted me to talk about this. Was Oppenheimer worth the extra money, the extra waiting, and the extra hype behind seeing it in this IMAX 70mm format? And absolutely, I have never seen a movie like this on a scale like this. It really does make the movie better. I am in shock with how amazing talent went into filming this film. Even if you have already seen this movie, if you have the opportunity to see it in IMAX 70mm, do it. If you have the money, you have the distance, you have the time to go do it, please go do yourself a service. See this movie in IMAX 70mm. And the resolution was incredible. Having something this massive in front of you, this close, you really, at least I was really worried that the resolution wasn't going to be as sharp, because you're going to be noticing that because you're so close. One of the sharpest movies I have ever seen. The audio was incredible. The bass was just thundering. It was unlike any movie experience I have ever had before. And, you know, seeing movies like Avengers Infinity War in theater, especially with how big that was, it was a very fun experience. This was a very different experience, but just as good. It was very immersive and awe-inspiring. Just the aspect ratio alone, Oppenheimer jokes aside, really added to the atmosphere of this film, which, unlike Oppenheimer, at least this aspect ratio didn't light the atmosphere on fire.
Is anyone ever going to tell the truth?
So with the IMAX 70mm stuff out of the way, it's just, this movie is a very slow burn, but it needed to be. This movie is a very hard movie to make, not because of the technology that goes behind building an atomic bomb, but making people care about this very real person and story. It needed time to set up the story, the characters, and why you should care about the feelings Oppenheimer had while working on the Manhattan Project. This movie is so much more about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Christopher Nolan really wanted you to focus on that. There's a whole scene at the end of the film where President Truman is talking to Oppenheimer in the Oval Office, and he's like, oh yeah, all that nonsense with Hiroshima, and then Oppenheimer cuts him off and says, and Nagasaki. He's like, oh yeah, and Nagasaki. And it just kind of goes to show how people view the Manhattan Project. It's always Hiroshima, what happened at Hiroshima, and yes, Nagasaki was unfortunately bombed too, but it's always, we want to see Hiroshima get bombed when we watch this movie. We want to see a bomb go off. And that is the wrong approach to this film, in my opinion. And I think Christopher Nolan agrees with that notion. We all like big explosions. There's nothing wrong with that. But the story here is very real. The people who suffered, both in Japan and the people working on this project, were very real. And there's a lot of political climate around this movie that I never even imagined would have happened. Actually, I take that back. It's America. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Christopher Nolan really wanted to make a study, a character study on Oppie, not an excuse to show Hiroshima get bombed and get butts in seats just to watch a city blow up. There's a lot of times in this film where you're like, where is this going? We want to see the bomb, and it sucks you right back in. But while I'm wondering where is this going, it's not because I'm bored. It's because I'm like, I want to know what happens next. Like, why is this scene important? Where is this going for Oppenheimer's development of this project? Why are these characters important? Why do we keep cutting back and forth between all these timelines, or points in history, I should say?
The Russians have a bomb. We're supposed to be years ahead of them, but what were you guys doing in Los Alamos?
There's just a lot of tension here, both philosophically and politically, that Christopher Nolan masterfully conveyed through the hearings that happened in the beginning, middle, and end of the film, the development of the Manhattan Project, Oppenheimer's backstory, even the women he was with, the Communist Party stuff, and really understanding why he was the way he was, why he thought the way he did, why the Manhattan Project was so much more than a bomb, but the political climate and the political consequences that came with it as well. And I'm not saying we should disregard Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the horrifying bombing that happened over those cities. I just think that it's also equally as important to focus on the political side of it and why Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed in the first place. I think Nolan wanted us to understand why it happened. This film really satisfyingly captivated the importance in understanding the capabilities mankind can have when developing a weapon like this. My point here is that Oppenheimer is more than just a creation of a bomb. It's more about what happened in New Mexico, more about a communist party and America's democracy. It's more than about just making a cool film. It's almost like a political drama. It's about why this happened. And a lot of you are probably going, well, obviously it happened because we wanted to end the war. But there's a scene in this film where they're still working on the project. It's getting towards its later phases, near the testing phase, and they find out Hitler's been, he's dead. He was off by himself. And they're like, well, what do we do now? Why do we need this bomb? And they're just like deciding what is the point in this after the fact that Germany is already stepped out of the war. And the US government steps in and they're like, oh no, we want to blow something up because we're America. We want to show the Japanese we mean business. And they even say, well, why don't we invite them over here and have them look at the bomb themselves? Why do we just gotta drop it on them? And there is that follow-up scene where like, yo, they would never agree to that. They didn't even try, first of all. At least in the film, they never conveyed that they even tried. I'm pretty certain they would have never come to America to view a threat like, oh, we're gonna blow up your country if you don't surrender. I don't see Japan doing that in 1945. But the point being is that the US government really didn't care. They just wanted to show that they were powerful and they had the edge in this nuclear race, this new-founded nuclear race. And I know I'm right because that was a big thing it was the thing in the Cold War, being ahead of the other countries, specifically Russia, in this race in nuclear weaponry. America has always wanted to be the top dogs, and they have a big ego in this film. They want to convey that they are the shit. It's almost like they use this excuse of, well, maybe if we build the bomb and just show them that we can bomb them, they'll surrender. Or if we're just doing our jobs, it's out of our hands, just to sleep at night, basically. Which brings me to my next point about how this is a very intriguing political drama where Oppenheimer throughout the movie is trying to serve his country the best way he can, yet he's always under scrutiny from the people who hired him in the first place, even after the bomb was already created. All it took for Oppenheimer's downfall in his image was a jealous Congress member, that being the character played by Robert Downey Jr. So just this whole political angle of the film is just as important as the physical destruction of the bombs themselves, because without understanding the political back and forth that went on between these characters, you don't understand what really happened in the Manhattan Project. But like I said, that's the political angle. The moral angle of this film is far more horrifying.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. I suppose we all thought that, one way or another.
After the events of August 6, 1945, Oppenheimer is delivering a very chilling speech, and you have the whole room cheering for him, Oppie, yeah, woo. He's both proud of what his team was able to accomplish working together, because theory will only take you so far, but he's even more so horrified with what they just did. No, they weren't the ones who dropped the bomb, but they were the ones who created it. They were the ones who gave the means to the person who dropped the bomb. So they were just as responsible. At least that's how he feels. But he's not just worried about that. He's also worried about this can of worms he just opened that can never be closed again. And that's, we have an atomic bomb. They're always going to want a bigger bomb. You have the sound of clapping and cheering slowly transition to a close-up of his face as he steps on a burnt corpse that, in a way, he created. He's truly contemplating what he has done here. Did he just end the world? It was truly a masterfully filmed scene that gave a lot of thematic ideas here, with the whole, I killed these people just as much as the person who dropped the bomb, and we're cheering for it. Now, a lot of this movie wouldn't have been as enjoyable without the beautifully horrifying score that Ludwig Göransson, I believe is his name, composed here, the same man who worked on The Mandalorian. You have this whole scene of, can you hear the music? It's like, yes, I can hear the music. And you have this imagery of stars and atoms combining and combustion and fission and fusion all happening at the same time, with this song that's both horrifying because you know what comes of this, but it's also beautiful. What can a human mind truly do? And if you wonder and you theorize enough, how big can humans go? That corpse isn't just representing the people he killed, it's also representing the planet in a way. Did he just step on the planet? As in, did he just seal its fate in a way? I just stepped on this. I just created this beast, and there's no going back from that. I killed the planet in a way. I killed everybody. Throughout the film, Oppenheimer goes to these communist meetings, not because he's a communist or wants to be one. He is a free thinker, a theorist, and it's his job, or at least it's a good way to approach his job, to learn how other people think, get new perspective and new ideas to further your own perspectives and ideas. That's what a good theorist does. They build upon their theories, because theories will only take you so far. You want to know how much you can push this. You want to learn and get better. And because of this, it leads to his downfall. The greatest tool to achieve his achievement is also the tool for his biggest downfall. And that's a big thing throughout the film. Theory will only take you so far. So he does his best to change his theories, to further his theories, to learn from other people. That's the whole point of the Manhattan Project. Every single scientist that they could find came together, and they still worked on it together. Yet after it was done and the CIA really had no use for them, they threw them out and said, oh, well, sucks to suck, I guess. Thanks for your service, hoorah. The last thing I really want to talk about when it comes to this film is, now I am become death, destroyer of worlds. That bomb dropping, almost like he just ended the world. Having that silence before the bomb, which would have happened in real life. There is a delay. They are like 10 miles away. The speed of light is obviously faster than the speed of sound. And you have that moment to contemplate the beauty and horror of what just happened. You have that time to look and just like, what have we done almost? And it really sucks you in, especially in that IMAX 70mm format. And then you have that huge boom, blows you away. And it's almost like those consequences are hitting you. Like, oh my God, what was that? Like, this was a lot more powerful than I thought this was gonna be. So it's kind of like the consequences are hitting Oppenheimer and everyone else there. And that leads to the end of the film where he's talking to Einstein, and Einstein's like, it's time for you to live with the consequences of your theory. And Oppenheimer's like, yeah, I think I did just end the world with the push of a button. I hope you guys really enjoyed this dissection of Oppenheimer. I'm sure there's a lot I missed. It's my first time doing a video like this, so if you have any tips or constructive criticism, I'd love to hear it. I'm sure as I'm editing this, I'm like, I wish I had talked about this. Overall, a fantastic film, a solid 10 out of 10 in my opinion. I'm not really here to review it. I just really want to dissect the things that I found intriguing, the imagery and the direction that Christopher Nolan took here. And I would love to do more dissections later on. But thank you all so much for watching. And if you want to see more dissections, feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell. And I'll see you guys in the next one.
Subscribe to Zang Helios for some more frickin' believable content.